Okay, welcome to part 2 of our stream today about the release of Studio One Pro 7. We're going to do a little bit of a recap, and I've actually had a little time now to actually get into the software a bit and see some of the new improvements and upgrades in this version. And overall, it seems pretty smooth. I know this morning was a little rocky. So let's talk about the overall day so far as a recap. And I think that while we did have some issues this morning in terms of people getting access to the update, within an hour or two, everyone I've seen has been able to get access or sort that out. And so those bumps in the road seem to have been sorted out. We'll see if there's others who are still having an issue. But that seems to, I think my initial frustration was that, they took the money and then it was like an hour before I could even get access to it. And they were saying it was just because of interest. And I've seen a lot of people online who are saying that they're going to just install because they're excited without even waiting to see if, things are testing out okay or working okay. Let me know if you're one of those ones who installed right away. One of the other things I want to do, and we're going to go probably just like 20 to 25 minutes today on this second stream. I'm curious as to what, if any, bugs you're running into. What are the things that you're noticing right off the bat that are causing you issues? Are there certain plugins that aren't working that you would have expected to work? What things have failed that maybe we're not talking about? Let me know in the comments or the chat if there's anything that you're having issues with. So far, what I'm discovering is that a few of the features are things that I feel like probably could have just been here all along. It's like they feel really natural. The embedded, what they're calling in terms of this interface change that we have down below with the pad controls and impact being just embedded down here in the edit window. That right there is something that just feels really nice. It's nice to be able to have the step sequencer happening and that right next to it all kind of in one interface. That's a perfect example of something that I feel like after using it for a few minutes seems to be really great. And the instrument, the new Deep Flight 1, I'm still on the fence with the interface. I don't know if I like the interface all that much. Just the graphic design with the clouds. But, I get that they're trying to do something to compete with some of the other big instruments like this. And so that's cool. Whatever. It seems really playable off the bat. I was just playing with a couple of the presets and changing some things around. But I was just like, wow, this patch seems really playable. And then I'd go to another one and it seems really playable. So right out of the gate, sometimes that's not the case with new instruments, although you'd think someone's going to release a brand new instrument that they would make the presets really playable. And too often, that's just not always the case. But these ones seem really nice. Oh, I'm in the wrong instrument. Let's go up to D Flight. It's just this one here that's the Blue Heaven. And that's actually only partially the patch because I do have the arpeggiator on. This is without the arpeggiator. So I threw the arpeggiator. It just feels, every update that comes from Studio One, it feels like a more complete set of tools, which is something I've always liked about Logic Pro, is that every time that they release more, maybe we're happy, maybe we're not, but it feels like a more complete set of tools. And so that's good. Number one complaint I'm seeing from everybody is what Sunnybird just said in the chat, which is the subscription or the 1 year updates with flat fee sucks. And not everybody not every company can just do that. I feel like right now Studio One's in the hot seat to be profitable for its overlords, and so hopefully what they're doing is something that users feel is worth the money. But, and I hate to be like that person in the room that sometimes questions that thought process, but at what point do we expect companies to do upgrades for cheaper or free? And I mean, that's a hard mentality to be in. I feel like Apple ruined this for themselves in some ways by doing the App Store, where the App Store, every app is expected to be cheap. And now there's a whole generation of people growing up who see that a game should be like $5 instead of $60. Now there are still some platform games that are very expensive, and they'll still get purchased, but it's certainly, the mentality is software should be cheap, right? It's not a physical thing. Why isn't it so expensive? Even if it takes time to build. I don't know. I'm on the fence because I see both sides, but I really like some of the sound. So that's kind of fun. Starting a song here. Oof, yeah. So I like so far a lot of the things that they've adjusted here. I have the floating browser up, which is nice to be able to pull things around. The way that this interface is streamlined is cool. I'm going to be honest with you. I know that the launcher was a big part of this update. And just as with Logic Pro, where I've never done a video on the live loops, I will never do a video on the launcher here. I never say never, I suppose, but that's just not the way that I work or I'm interested in doing, even though it looks like they did something cool with it. It's just not something that I'm interested in doing. But let me see. I'm going to record just a little bit of that progression for a second. And then I want to actually just use the transpose overall thing in semitones and see if there's anything special with that at all. Here we go. Let's see. Gotta get my keyboard in the right place. Okay, cool. Piece of cake, nothing fancy. Let's push play on this whole thing. I'm going to transpose it up just one. Or that thing's like a hair trigger. It's like you pull and drag and it like flies through the numbers. I'm going to have to just type it in most of the time, I feel like. I'm missing something. I'll figure that out. So we're in the key of D minor. Interesting. Okay, I missed something, a step there, but we'll get that sorted out. Some of those features, I really like the transpose function in Logic that's on the transport, but it works very different in some ways because it doesn't have as deep access to the chords and things that we do in Studio One. So we're going to do, let's put on the impact just another something here to make that a little bit, we're going to compress it a little bit. Can I make that bigger? Yeah, okay, I can drag it down. Cool. Can I drag this middle section up? I don't see a way to shrink that down. I guess we could take off. Do I have to have all the tags there? It looks like thumbnails, tree mode. Anyway, I guess not. Fix. Okay, so I'm wondering with the tag search if I can even pull those off, but looks like I'm stuck a little bit there. Cool, whatever. And then we can do it by vendor if we want. I'll just throw a compressor on. Okay, cool. Yeah, that instrument, D Flight 1. Let's do another one of those real quick. Just pull it on a separate track. And it's an interesting instrument. I think overall there's a lot of power to it. I mean, it has all the right stuff built into it. It has the effects that we're going to mostly use, the ability to morph between sounds, and then a lot of deep parameters to adjust. I think this is going to be an instrument that's going to be fun to mess around with. In reality, is it that much different than anything else that we have on other programs that are a similar type of instrument? Not really. But it's nice to have a new set of source sounds to deal with and to build from. And so anytime we get additional things to sculpt from, different types of clay, so to speak, I think that doesn't hurt us. And so we get to go through and see what the source material is and what we can do with it. And so I think that's actually a pretty fun way to approach this, with these 3 different sounds that we get to morph between and build a new thing with. That is something that's attractive to me. So what would make this instrument better than, say, like Alchemy and Logic or something else along those lines, which I think Alchemy is, like, in terms of power, maybe 100 times more powerful than this. It just has more of everything. Does that make it better? Not always, because sometimes what we want is the ability to take some basic sound sources and be able to manipulate them with ease rather than having to learn essentially an entire workstation to make the sounds sound the way we want. Perhaps the power of Alchemy is also its greatest weakness, and that it's too complex sometimes for people. And I hear that all the time. With this, it looks like what we're doing is creating an interface that perhaps is more accessible, albeit sometimes a little bit hard to read. And that's not just me. I think even when you light up the buttons and there's green, the words are still small and low contrast. And I think that's going to be an issue for some people in terms of reading all of those little words on there. So whatever. Cool. But I'm really happy with the overall sound so far of a lot of the presets of this thing. Although, so we have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, I mean, I'm not going to count them all, but let me just show you all the presets of this. For an instrument that's going to start off as a preset type instrument where you're going to choose a preset because that's kind of what this is, that's not a ton of sounds. And I feel like when you're going to do a big release and say this is one of the big features of a new version of software, at the risk of canceling this stream or crashing it, I do want to, let's open up Logic for 1 second because there's a comparison I was just thinking of as I was talking. And Jay Bognap Ooh, BT1. Ooh, we might get some of PreSonus plugins in my Logic. I did not expect that. Interesting. I didn't realize that some of those were going to be open to other applications. Logic never does that. But it looks like some of the ones that got installed with Studio One Pro 7 are now going to work inside Logic as well. Oof. So, Jay Bognap, one of the things that I agree with you with the notation, the chord track, on polyphonic audio, although clip launching, I don't know. I guess I'm not sure exactly what you're saying with all that, if that's the combination you're talking about. Okay. Yay. Okay, so technically the streaming stuff didn't crash, just the audio engine. Turns out when Studio One, Logic, and streaming stuff are all using the same audio interface, it's not great. So hopefully someone give me a thumbs up in the chat if I'm back. But we have Logic open. And I just wanted to open up Alchemy for a second because this is the example of the presets that I now come to expect. It has almost 3,800 presets in one instrument. And that's more than you'll ever be able to get through, right? 3,800. If you were to audition one every like 20 seconds, that would, it's 3,000, over 3,000 is a lot of presets. It's not as many as I've seen, but certainly it's a high number. And then the issue that I was having was with Studio One and the new Deep Flight one, which is really a kind of a preset type thing, even though you can manipulate and change and do things with it. We have 384. So a tenth, almost exactly a tenth, just over a tenth of what the Alchemy has. What does that mean? It means that at some point they said, that's enough. That's enough to showcase this thing. Don't go overboard, engineering team or creative team or whatever. But I find that that's not very much. Cool, but I like it. I like how it sounds so far. The presets, I think that the ones that they did give us tend to sound pretty good. And so I'm not complaining about that too much. But I just think, I wish there was more, and maybe a way to like really easily go through those. I know that we have in here, we have the dimensional leads, the hybrid choirs, the hybrid pad chords, the hybrid pads gated, and the organic keys. None of those really mean much. So again, a little short-sighted on the creation of the amount of presets and whatnot. Cool. There was something else I was going to ask or look at. Oh, I wanted to see inside Logic. I wanted to see what that was looking like because that was very unexpected. I don't know why it was unexpected, but it was. So I have Ampere, analog chorus, analog delay, fat channel, pedal board, RC500, red light district, rotor, tricomp, vocoder, VT1, and the VU meter. So all of these things, let's see if they're popping up. I don't know why they're showing up if they're, so maybe they're not available. I just tried to load one and it says they're not available on your system. So I don't know why. That may be a coding issue that they just screwed up. I don't know. That seems really, I don't know what this is all about. Why they would show up in Logic but then not be available. I'm not going to worry about that right now. It seems like some sort of glitch or something. Okay, cool. So the things I have yet to still really dive into, I feel like I've definitely gotten a better sense for Deep Flight 1 and using it, and some of the other things. I really, like I said, this feels like a really logic way of working to me, with the one window experience with the step sequencer and the drum parameters. That's cool. You'll probably have to go someplace else to do something with the launcher and how that's working. But I haven't had that many issues, except for the initial install. I think it has felt really comfortable on the computer. No crashes, no bugs. A lot of my software is working just fine, and so I think that that's really helpful to have that right off the bat be kind of a, an end result of this. I am going to be testing out this with the Reason Rack, because if I were to ever use this more than Logic, which I don't think that's going to be the case for the most part, just because there's still a few things that I really need access to. Here, let's do instruments. I wouldn't mind getting a nice plugin search inside Logic. Geez, that would be so nice. Reason Rack plugin instrument. Let's see if this loads up. Oh, my internet connection's fine. Update license. That's interesting. I don't think that's a Studio One thing, but it looks like, well, looks like there's an update. So I'll update it and see if that's working fine. But this would be the only way I could actually do it and have some of those other tools and bring them in. A really nice, better vocoder, really nice pitch correction real time. A lot of those things brought in. I would have to use something like Reason Rack with Studio One to get some of that stuff. Some of the percussion and drummer type things. Those things that Studio One is so primed for. It's so ready to have a really great auto drummer that uses some sort of intelligent patterning. Patterning. That's not a real word. I made that up. But no, Traveling Alien, and it looks like none of the actual things are working in there anyway. I don't know why those showed up. That's not something I was expecting. And so I don't think we're going to be able to actually use any of that stuff in Logic. They must have just missed like a tag on it or something. Anyway, I just wanted to follow up and give this kind of more of a report about how things are working. I'm feeling really positive about it overall. Jay Bognap, if they added like a really nice integrated set of instruments like Logic just did with their session players, that would be like a tipping point for me, because I like so much of what Studio One does, and I don't want to get third-party ones, because a lot of times the third-party ones, they're just overly complicated to integrate. I know some people are like, no, they're not. They're fine. You can do it. But there's a lot of things that are overly complicated that not everyone thinks about. Like if I update Studio One, then I have to think about updating the third-party things. If it's integrated, then it should work seamlessly across every update. And that for me is a huge draw, partially because of the way I work and partially because of the way I want to work. And so that kind of thing makes a big difference to me. Okay, like I said, just about 20 to 25, 30 minutes update on how this is working today. If any of you are using this and have found some bugs or other things that are working, then let me know in the chat or the comments. Um, and then, well, MD11 says, what do you think of the arrangement, which has now become even more intuitive with the Launchpad? I think the arrangement and logic is not as intuitive. I think that the version of arrangement markers and logic is fine. However, I think that it's a pretty simplistic implementation, and I really like what they've done here. By you can actually have the full arrangement inspector. Let me pull this up. Where then you can, move things around over here. And that's different. And plus the scratch pad. I mean, there's a lot of power in the scratch pad and in the arrangement functionality here that we don't have in a thing like Logic. And so we can always hope for more nuance in other programs, but it's fun to see that it actually has a lot of nuance here in Studio One. And I've watched videos and learned about the Harmony Wizard. It looks pretty amazing, but that's something I definitely need to explore a little bit more. Okay, I got to pull the plug on this stream. I was just doing a follow-up to the first one. I had to leave abruptly in the middle of it, but I'm feeling pretty positive about Studio One Pro 7 overall as an update. So let's see what other workstations have to answer this.